Hi, and welcome to Jim's Friday Freakout. This week's segment looks at outrageous mail fails. All the boneheaded things people have tried to send through the mail, and a couple of things that ought to be illegal but aren't. If you enjoy this segment, please like and comment below. We're glad to have you here today. Okay, to start off on a serious note, with all the political strife we've been had lately, perhaps you've heard about the person who tried to ship dynamite through the mail. No? Well, don't feel too bad because it happened in 1915. Yes, in the New York City post office at Morton and West Streets, a postal worker noticed that some of the stuffing was coming out of a package. And he brought it to his supervisor's attention because the package was damaged, and also there was 18 cents due on the package. So as the supervisor was carrying this damaged package across the floor of the post office, a stick of dynamite fell out. They later commented that it was amazing that the dynamite had survived its trip across the country and that it was only the packaging that had made that possible. So, important safety tip. If you're ever going to send high explosives through the mail, make sure to use plenty of balled up newspaper. In fact, it said that once the package reached New York, it had, among other challenges, it had to go through a 2-story drop through a chute. And somehow this still managed not to blow up. So good news for all involved. Oh, by the way, I want to thank clicker.com for this dynamite graphic. You would not believe how difficult it is to get a picture of dynamite in the public domain. You look up dynamite photos and what you get is dynamite photos. Awesome skateboard moves, women in great dresses. I finally had to search for photographs of sticks of dynamite. Public domain. This is what I got. Enjoy. All right, well, before we get into all the boneheaded things that people have tried to send through the mail over the years, let's look at some of the things that are surprisingly legal to ship. Hey, ever wanted to get baby chickens in the mail? Knock yourself out. IamCountryside.com will set you up right away. Now, they raise the question that you may have in your mind. Wait, you say, is that safe for the chicks? Amazingly, it is. This is from their website. I guess they ship them securely in a cardboard box. And first of all, this seemed cruel to me. When I thought about it later, I realized that until just a few days previously, these chicks had been inside of an egg. So maybe being inside a cardboard box doesn't really feel too much like an infringement of their rights. At any rate, that's something you can do. And among the other surprisingly legal things are things you can look up on the United States Postal Service website, including a page, Toxic Substances and Infectious Substances. Now, if the answer was simply no way, this page would not be over 9,200 words long, which is what it is. There are a surprising number of toxic and infectious things you are allowed to ship through the mail. So, the next time you see your postal workers, give them their due credit for the fact that instead of just saying a hard no, they actually have to consider whether or not the packaging requirements have been met for things like infectious medical sharps, cyanide, and tear gas. God bless them for doing what they do. The toxic substances part of this website page breaks it down by how the different ways that things can be toxic. Thanks, Postal Eagle. Oral toxicity. Can you eat it? No, you can't. Dermal toxicity, poison if you touch it. Inhalation toxicity, probably pretty straightforward. And irritating material. I presume this means our tax returns. No, but seriously, they detail that irritating material are things that have extreme but reversible effects, temporarily impairing a person's ability to function. So we are talking about our tax returns. Anyway, all right. But sometimes it's the old-fashioned things that are the most fun. And in my local small-town post office a few years ago, I was standing in line, and I noticed stuck up on the wall with a piece of Scotch tape was a printout of something from what I presume is like the internal communications website for the Postal Service, saying, illegal shipment of deadly Cobras foiled. Good Lord in heaven. So apparently what happened was there was a box that seemed kind of iffy to a postal worker. So they opened it up, and inside there were 3 potato chip cans. Think Pringles cans, but it was a foreign brand. One of the cans moved. So they x-rayed them, and inside, doggone it, King Cobras. Okay, and I just want to remind you that King Cobras are called that because they're the cobras that eat other deadly poisonous snakes. They get up to 18 feet long. And I read in a book once that when a fully grown king cobra rears back and does that cobra thing, they would be eye to eye with a 6 foot tall man. I'm not scared of snakes, but I'm scared of that. So thank you, Postal Inspection Service and U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, for foiling this crime. Sometimes it's the old-fashioned terms that are best. You'd think uranium would be a hard no, wouldn't you? Now, it's actually more complicated than that. Here's the, I guess, some sort of sub table of the periodic table explaining that there are actually a lot of different kinds of uranium. And uranium-238 is one that it naturally occurs. You can go out and mine it, dig it up out of the ground if you're in the right place. And U-238 is not fissile, meaning you can't make a bomb out of it. So, want to ship it through the mail? Powder? Rock? Knock yourself out. A few years ago, there was somebody, whoops, oh, blew the track. Okay, a few years ago, there was somebody who was a drug addict, known by the police, to the police to be a drug addict, who got some powdered uranium in the mail because he thought it would be awesome to have his picture taken with it. People showed up in hazmat suits, looked it over and said, yep, you're allowed to have that. So there's uranium for you. It's not a fail. Your kid. All right, well, this is a fail, but it's not quite that simple. In 1913, the Postal Service started accepting parcels over 4 pounds, and it took approximately 0 years for somebody to figure out that this would be an awesome way to get their baby from point A to point B. But let's put this in context. Back in the old days, people were very likely to know their postal worker personally. And in at least one instance, somebody paid 15 cents postage and insurance and had the postal worker carry their baby a mile down the street to the grandmother's house. There was also a time when when mail was carried by train. It may still be, for all I know. And getting your kid a couple of 100 miles as a parcel was a lot cheaper than buying him a ticket on the train. Party ended in 1920 when this sort of thing became illegal, about 7 years after it started and about 7 years overdue. So it's a fail, but doggone it, don't you wish we lived in that 7-year period where you could mail your kid for 15 cents? Yourself. Now, this is a fail, but it deserves to be called a success. There was a man named Henry Brown who in 1848, he was a slave working in a tobacco factory in Richmond, Virginia. He went through the agony of watching his wife and children be sold to somebody else and taken away out of state when he could do nothing about it. When that happened, he resolved not to live as a slave anymore. So we got in touch with somebody in the choir in his church who was apparently well connected and a white abolitionist. He paid them $83 out of his own money, which in those days, that would be over $2,000 in current money. And those folks got in touch with some Quakers in Philadelphia, and they had him shipped in a box. Took 27 hours. But doggone it if he didn't make it. Now, I thought this illustration from a newspaper at the time was taking some liberties. Now, I think they are in the case of his outfit, because one of the witnesses reported that when he arrived and they took the lid off the box, he was soaking wet, and I shudder to think why. But so I don't think he was in the fancy suit he's shown in here. But as to the size of the box, they weren't messing around. PBS reported that the box this guy shipped himself in was 3 feet by 2'8" by 2 feet. He was in it for 27 hours, and despite the fact that the right side was clearly marked this end up, it got jostled end over end, and at one point he was completely upside down inside that box, struggling to remain quiet and in agony. But he made it, and he made himself a free man. So when I put out the word to my friends on Facebook, what's the most crazy, insane thing you've ever heard shipped through the mail? You've heard some of the stories here, including Henry Box Brown and your kids. So thanks to friends who helped me with this. Another friend said there was an instance in which someone had a horse shipped to Italy, but it was by FedEx. So that's perhaps a Jim's Friday Freakout for another time. But it certainly has been fun looking into this. And I want to give a lot of credit to our postal workers for putting up with the kinds of things illegal and legal that people ship through the mail. And it reminds me, I need to put a tip in the mail for a month ago for the holidays for my letter carrier. So maybe you should do the same and think twice the next time you want to ship something like a Cobra. All right. If you've enjoyed this segment, like and comment below. And also over on Facebook, you can join our public group, James Michael Riley Studios, to get the latest scoop on all of these things as they're released, hot off the press, every week. I want to thank USPS.com, the New York Times, USA Today, Popular Mechanics, FactRepublic.com, Java-based nuclear information software. I love that that exists. GraphicsHunt.com, PBS, African American Registry, and Canva for the template for this presentation. Thanks so much, folks. See you next week.